All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson here today, joined by Tim the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin.
You're
We
here.
got some good stories. We're going to talk about Free Britney.
Free Brittany. Yeah,
We're
that,
going
that's one of the things I didn't put that in the title, but that is
to
something we definitely can talk about. So we got a few different stories for today. One is about kind of a Rochester-based situation. Uh, City Council looks like it's gearing up to maybe put police back in schools. We'll see. They took them out in 2020, so we're going to talk about that. Maybe talk about conservatorships. That's on the list of things to talk about. So maybe we'll bring up a little bit of Free Britney there.
All
Uh,
right.
Greta getting arrested out in Germany.
Yeah.
Maybe I
Yeah.
know that situation's hilarious to me. Like just the whole thing. Like okay, you got the signs that say like don't dig up coal here, but also Atomkraft 9 Danke. All right, no thank you. Nuclear power. Okay,
Right. Right.
you gotta
Okay.
yeah, pick
Well,
one.
you got to kind of go for something here.
Just freeze to death, Tim.
Hmm,
Just if you
that
if you aren't breathing, you're not contributing to polluting the planet. So that's that's
that's a
the
good
option.
that's a good point. Hey, Shelly.
Hey, thanks for joining us tonight. So we'll get to all those. And again, if you're just a reminder, we're gonna do like the radio style format where we have to take 2 breaks because we have to answer a couple breaks for the station 'cause, our WYSL show airs on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. But again, we'll talk about the police issue, we'll talk about that, and, it may be other things too. We got a whole list of stuff that we could talk about, and of course, if there's anything that you wanna talk about, feel free to jump in, leave your comments. If it's good stuff, we'll read them on there as usual. So in just a second, we'll switch over and do the actual show part. Um, and let's see, and Tim, internal note for you, we'll do like 20 minutes or so for the first segment.
Okay. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
All right. And we'll start in at 2:30, 5, 4.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. As always, loving the show.
As
The
always.
Tuesday night radio discourse, man.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And so we are live streaming on our online sources on the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, Kevin Wilson page, Tim O'Connor pages, all those places. WYSL, this will be pre-recorded. So glad you're here wherever you're listening today. We got Shelly on YouTube. So hey Shelly, thanks for joining us tonight. Facebook user, whoever you are, you guys need a call-in number for viewers to talk on topics. Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like there's services that you can do to call into. We use a thing called StreamYard. There's ways to do it. I
We'll do
haven't
it. We'll
quite
put it
figured it out
together.
yet.
I think
Yeah,
it would be
we'll
great.
figure it out because
It's so much
like
fun.
honestly, like it was one of the real fun parts of when I was doing the live show on WYSL is folks calling in because you get to chat about.
I
And I
miss
never know. Sometimes it's on topic, sometimes it's totally not, and I'm thrown for a loop. And it's a good
Keith.
time.
I mean, Keith calls in. He called in regularly. He's got to be missing. Like he's got to be jonesing for you, brother. He's
Yeah,
got
right.
to be.
But I also got Patricia here and John, who's in Facebook jail. Thanks for finding us on YouTube, John.
Whoops.
And
It happens.
Brian LaRusso. Yeah, and it happens. It does happen. Happens to the best of us. But so a couple different topics to talk about today, though. We got the Rochester police in schools topic, and then maybe we'll get to conservatorship issues. We'll talk about that. Greta.
Greta. out there saving the world on her own, man. She's gonna
no,
do
we'll talk about her getting arrested and then the protests against coal mining in Germany, but maybe some underlying policy issues there driving that. But let's talk about the Rochester police and schools thing, because this has been a topic that kind of popped up recently again in Rochester. So for those of you who don't know, you're not from the area. In 2020, and this is kind of in the midst of the Black Lives Matter stuff going on, but it kind of was started well before that in Rochester, that there's this movement to get police out of schools. So in 2020, that ended up succeeding. They pulled police out of the Rochester City School District stuff, and it's been that way since. Now, since 2020, not specifically in Rochester, kind of generally, there's been a big uptick in crime, and with that has been like violent incidents in schools. Again, there's violence before that; it's gone up since then, and now people are asking, like, should there be police officers in school? In a particular incident that happened a little while ago, not too long ago, but it was almost 2 weeks ago now. But there was an incident at Franklin High School in Rochester where 8:30 in the morning, so someone came up, a guy ran out of a car, started chasing this 16-year-old who was a target, fired a bunch of shots, didn't kill anyone, didn't hit anyone, but still terrifying. You're coming into school and there's a random guy with a gun firing shots at you. And so obviously the students were upset. They're traumatized. The footage of this ended up getting leaked. Again, the students are very upset. They want something done. They want to feel safe in a school environment. The school board president, meanwhile, says, let me see if I can find the exact quote from Cynthia Elliott, who said, "This is something that happens in our community all the time. You can't stop living, and that includes you have to go to school." Basically said, okay, well, this is something that just happens. Get used to it. Get back.
She's loving the kids. She's teaching them what's important. And that's to get in there and learn their government mandated educational program. They nothing is more important than the government teaching them everything.
Gotta get your daily indoctrination. Nothing can stop that, not even being shot at.
That's right.
And so, like, the only action the school district had really taken on it, like, until pretty recently, where there's been some talk about maybe putting police back in schools, is that they punished the staff members who leaked the video, right? Because, like, again, thank goodness you took some action, right? Someone was held accountable for this.
We don't want people knowing about stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh man, you've really damaged the school by showing people what happened. Like they said, like, oh, you might have revealed the identities of the students or something. Like, even though they blurred them out and all the do stuff, but like, yeah, like you made the school look bad. You can't make the government look bad, because if you do, that's what you're going to get punished for. Not,
it's just amazing. So yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how you feel about police in school. I think that school is already a cloistered enough, enclosed, encapsulated environment, and that if there's going to be a resource officer in the school, I'm not a big fan of them. I guess I don't know. I'd hate to see it. I don't think it sets schools already a structured environment. It just seems a little bit, overdone.
Yeah, so I tend to mostly agree with you for like a couple reasons. One, and I'll kind of get to that counterpoint in a second, but one is that like it is a cloistered environment, and also with this particular incident, having police officer in the school wouldn't have helped. It wouldn't have changed anything, right? Like the whole thing happened too quick. Like it wouldn't have mattered. And that's what happens in a lot of cases. And in fact, like in places like the Parkland shooting and the one in Uvalde, like having the police right there didn't end up like helping, right?
How can it? It's this random act of violence that no one is ever going to be prepared for. And look, I went to a protest not that long ago about a resource officer at Norwich School who got to a little disagreement with a kid and decided to prove to the kid who was boss and had his tractor impounded. The kid drives his tractor to school. The police officer didn't really like it. Like people want to talk. Maybe the kid's not the best behaved kid. I don't believe it. The kid was doing something for his family. He was going to pick up wood from his grandfather. He drove his tractor to school. That's it. the cop got mad, impounded it. So that's
Yeah.
really the dark
No,
side, right? Of
there's and there's stuff where you see some of the videos of like school resource officers like handcuffing like an 8-year-old or something, right?
who's
Like
having a
there's stuff
temper
like that.
tantrum. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
and
protocol.
or just they get the kids get charged with like actual crimes. And again, I know there are some kids that are bad, and there needs to be like an escalation there. But there's some who get
Yeah.
in like petty fights, and that fights or just having like small amounts of drugs on them, like marijuana, like is less of a thing now. But like before, like when you or I went to high school, if you got caught with a little bit of weed on you and the school resource officer caught you with it, you might get in like actual serious trouble for that if they weren't cool about it. And there's unfortunately a lot of police officers who wouldn't just be like, "Hey, I'm gonna throw that out and don't do that anymore," right?
They're taking a risk of being if they're doing their job, and there is protocol to
Yeah,
follow, right? So if they take a risk and they wink, wink, nod, nod something off to the side, somebody could use that
they could
against
get
them at a later date. So
exactly. And
they
so yeah,
kind of
they don't want to do
got 'em.
that. There's incentives to do that. So yeah, unfortunately, there are many kids who can end up with criminal records because of like that type of situation. And again, I'm not talking about like the extreme cases where there are kids who are like really violent. Like I get that, but that's not most of it. It's just on net. Are they providing that much safety versus creating a situation where you might end up making these kids' lives worse? Plus, it's very expensive. Like there's a whole thing in Greece, a suburb of Rochester, where like the school resource officers are getting paid like $120,000.
Oh my
It was some
god.
like ridiculous
Oh
number,
my yeah.
and they wanted
Oh
more
my
for him.
god.
They're and the police put out this statement that was like, "Oh, the Greece City School District doesn't care about like safety in schools." I'm like, "No, you're trying to shake them down for like 300 grand." Like it was just
Oh
obscene
my
number.
god.
Like they weren't. It wasn't quite that. I couldn't find like the exact number quickly,
It's
but it
I
was a
can
lot of
see
money for like two
yeah.
officers in schools that have been shared over several. Um,
Where do you
now,
I got a great solution though, right?
what was
If
that?
if we do away with public schools, there will be no more violence in schools. If
Yeah, got a good point.
I mean, they
That
could do all the teaching online. I mean, we could keep the schools as our community centers. We could save millions of dollars a year. It would be an
yeah,
amazing thing for the community. They could still do sports. I'd let them do sports,
yeah.
like and chorus and plays and stuff. And just think that that could be the focal point of schools.
That I tend to agree with you. Now, but I do wanna get to okay, so you're right. I wanna stop and acknowledge that you're right. That would be a good way of doing it. How do we deal with the situation we have now, right? And what I always wanna
Yes.
acknowledge in these situations is that there's like a real tangible fear of safety, not just from like the people yelling about it online, but from the students themselves, right? Like there's a protest at this school, like Franklin, because students felt like they were unsafe. It's understandable, right? If there's someone shooting at your classmates in front of your school, you feel unsafe. And and I want to quote someone who like talked about this. Says if your interpretation is that kids can handle it because it's their everyday experience, then you're normalizing the snuffing out of children's lives," said Melanie Funchess, a former board member and longtime mental health professional. "We're normalizing warlike conditions and expecting people with underdeveloped brains to just deal with it."
Oh
You know,
my
there
god, she's normalizing, like, over exaggeration of every single aspect of someone's life, like, that's so social justice warrior-y kinda
oh,
deal,
so
I can't even
uh,
handle it.
yeah, I'll tell you, like, so I used to work with Melanie, that it's a little
Okay.
bit of it. So she is, but she's not totally wrong though. Like again, if you're like experiencing violence all the time though, like it does like change how you think. If you feel unsafe in a learning environment, you're less likely to be able to focus on like doing well in that environment, right? So if you're gonna like accept the
It's
premise
fair.
that like government schools are a legitimate thing, there needs to be a way to have some measure of safety in that environment. Now, again, you and I think, are both on the same page. Well, maybe the better thing to do is to decentralize that system and have other ways of people being able to access education.
Sure.
Um, but I think the important thing is that people do want to feel safe. And
They
unfortunately,
do.
we get in this like binary where like either you need to be for police officers in schools and all the trade-offs you get with that, or you need to ignore like the violence that happens in schools, which is what the school board president seemed to imply, like, oh, this is something that just happens. Like,
It's just get back to work, that's all. It's just get
yeah.
back to work. It's like,
No, I like
you know
I
what?
think there's gotta be like an acknowledgement of like, yeah, this is messed up. Someone shot at you. Like you need to acknowledge that and give students time to process.
I
and find ways to ensure safety without saying like, okay, the only way to do that is have police in school, which don't necessarily make you safer and have all these other trade-offs.
I got
And they're expensive too. Like,
Yeah, I've got a question for you, and I'm not sure. I think that as a libertarian, I'm very comfortable with people who possessing firearms. Okay, so there was a call to like arm teachers in school and hire former military guys and stuff like that.
yeah,
I'm
we
going to
got a
go to
comment about that. Shelley said school staff should be able to carry.
I school staff, regardless, should be able to carry. Now, saying the concept of arming teachers is different than school staff should be able to carry, right? Like if you want to carry a weapon and you're proficient in a weapon and like you're comfortable that you'll be the right person at the right time. I'm comfortable with you carrying a weapon, but like I don't think we should arm like let's say we armed your friend there. Like I don't know what would happen. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to trust that kind of emotional reaction with a weapon, right?
Yeah. No, like there's a trade-off with that type of thing, right? Like you don't you'd have to in the same way that you'd need really competent people who in theory you want really competent people as police officers who can have the specific training to deal with highly emotional teenagers and they are, like they're everything feels like cranked up to 11 for
Yeah,
teenagers, right?
de-escalation techniques, right?
Yeah.
Like that would be very important for a school resource officer to have. And I have a feeling that they don't do any special training in de-escalation techniques when it comes to putting them in schools. I would guess that.
Maybe. Yeah, like you'd hope so. And I know I think it's Brian again, but he says there are bad apples in every basket. We can't make decisions based on a couple bad apples. We need to toss the bad apples. And I assume you're talking about that in the terms of like these school resource officers and maybe some of them being bad. I get that. I've had the same conversation with other folks about this, but again, it's whether or not that risk is worth it, and whether or not like we have plenty of data on this topic, whether or not you're ending up making too many of these kids' lives worse versus how much are they actually intervening to keep them safe. And I don't know that the balance is worth keeping school source officers in most schools. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I do think that there is a problem with violence. I do think that the government response to COVID did a certain amount of damage that increased certain amounts of black market activity that we are now still seeing the work through from that there is violence in our society, that it's based on this disconnection that the government forced on all these kids, and some of them are trying to get it back and some of them are getting it back, but it was a very strange time for them. So
yeah,
I mean, I don't know what that 16-year-old that got shot at, what he was involved in. Like, you have
yeah.
to
I mean, like
assume something, like, you have to assume something's going on. It wasn't, like something serious.
maybe.
I just don't know what.
Yeah, like it's hard to. I haven't seen like all that much follow up on it. Maybe it's out there and I just haven't seen it yet. But like this is a thing that happens again. Kids who are bored or their family members are involved in this stuff, and a lot of it's related to like the continued prohibition on drugs because there's money to be made in selling illegal substances in Rochester still.
Yeah. Well, black
And
markets are black markets, man. And
yeah,
they're
so
enforced by violence, obviously. Like, that's the only way to keep them.
yeah, and so there ends up being like a combination of social pressure, want for money, and all that driven by like a prohibition on drugs that makes selling it profitable. Uh, yeah, that's what drives these things. Like, God, honestly, like, libertarian wants to legalize drugs. Like, yeah, big headline there, right?
Right.
But that probably does address some of these issues. And I know we have a few comments talking about like the school psychologists and stuff. That's part of it too, not just for like the like mass shooter type folks, right? Like, which, yeah, sure, but like this is like in Rochester, it's like the day-to-day violence type of stuff, right? Like it's this type of stuff that it's like conflicts between like two blocks in a neighborhood in a city where just a bunch of kids like get caught up in the moment of like whatever their little tribe is. And and I say little tribe like it's diminutive, but it's like micro gangs in some of these cases, and they're caught up in, let's say, the black market or just whatever, and
Yeah.
for various complicated reasons, and it's tough to stop. And again, I like anyone who's like peddling like the simple answer, just like, oh, let's get cops back in schools. Like, well, it exists beyond the schools. Again, having a police officer in this situation there would not have stopped this.
Yeah, the shooting happened outside. It wouldn't have even affected anything. Like, again, it's the standard. We need a binary. We need a response. We need something done right now. And without a realization of the real problems, we're never going to get there, right? That black markets create violence, that children's lives have been affected by the government response to COVID. And until we get there, we can keep saying it, but I don't know. Where are we going to get? No one's listening. Are they? Well, a few people are
Yeah,
listening.
people listening. At least a
Well,
handful of us.
certainly smart people come down on our side, right? Smart people that think about what the government should do, shouldn't do, and the limits of reality and the right to protect ourselves. And if we roll all those things together, Rochester would already be safer.
Yeah. So that's part of it. Like, again, it takes a lot of might to move that. But what's going to end up happening again? There's a vote now. It's like Thursday to fund this, right? So we're going to pour maybe a few $100,000, a few $1 million into this program again. But again, this was a problem before. Now this is a problem before they removed police officers from schools in 2020. And my guess is that even with school resource officers back, it's going to continue to be a problem, just like in different ways, right? So we'll see what happens, but I don't know. It's
good luck to the kids. Good luck to the people in Rochester. I'd love
Yeah.
a peaceable solution. I'd like to know that the teachers that want to carry in Rochester are able to carry. Those are things I'd want.
yeah. I mean, like that, like never gonna happen. Like
I
not
know.
not at all gonna happen. I know people are like, oh yeah, let's do that. Like no, in City like there's zero. I wouldn't say zero. There's very little political will from people who live here and are active in politics that matter to do that. And by matter, I mean Democratic politics, because
right, they're getting chased out of the
it's
state.
just
Yeah, they're getting chased out of the state. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it is. But particularly in the city today, I know I'll hear a bunch of noise from my suburban friends about it. I'm like, yeah, you don't live here though. Like you be mad about it all you want. It's not gonna. We got to get city council members who like want, or not city council members, really, probably both school board members and change at the state level to allow this to happen.
Oh yeah.
So okay, we don't have that. That's not politically realistic for the moment. What else can we do?
Right.
Which is a weird thing for libertarians to grasp sometimes. Like,
something will get done.
Realistic.
Something will get done. I promise you that.
Yeah. Oh boy. So anyway, we have to head to a break. Thanks so much for listening to us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a minute. Talk to you soon. All right, folks. That's the first radio break. So we might move on from this topic now. I don't know if we'll get to some of these questions though.
Yeah, questions in the comments, and then we'll move on to conservatorship. We've got to talk about free
you
Britney
you're
and how that's going.
really excited to talk about that. All right, yeah, we got it. I picked this topic. You get the next one. That's what it is.
Well, this one might be a little dry, but guys, I'll do my best to make it fun, man. I will.
But let me get to a couple of these. So if you're a good citizen, have a legal concealed carry as a school teacher or staff, they should be able to carry. So again, generally, I agree with you, but in this case, I think the schools, as much as I hate like certification for stuff, I do think the schools have a responsibility to make sure that you know how to use that in that situation and keep that weapon secured in a school environment, right? Because the last thing you want is either a teacher to act recklessly and to kill a student, and or a student to be able to steal that weapon somehow and use it against other people, right? Like that's why it's like that's you gotta really make sure you do that right. And you're not having someone who's irresponsible, because I hate to break it to some of y'all, but there's a lot of irresponsible gun owners out there. In fact, a lot of the guns that are used in crimes in the city are stolen weapons.
We could put air quotes around stolen, I presume, right? Like, but
some of them really are though. Like they're people like they'll leave like their handguns unsecured in a car, or sometimes it's like in a home too. You like. You do the best you can, but people will take them, right? But there's a lot of that, and some of that is gun owners who are a little bit lackadaisical about securing their weapon properly.
I do think that if we had a culture that was more accepting of guns and more accepting of people's rights to defend themselves, these issues would weed themselves out. I know it's a very Machiavellian or cold-hearted way to put it, but what we're the part where we're missing the emotion of it is that people that have rights to defend themselves, that are law-abiding citizens, that love their families, that want to protect themselves, that's all they would use a gun for ever, are denied that right. And that is where our society is falling apart, at least in part. I point my angry libertarian finger at that.
Yeah. I get this other comment from Patricia. Maybe become a police state. They keep us safe. This is a deeper issue. That if we have schools, they need to bring back school psychiatrists to catch them before they fall. And that's kind of the comment I was referencing. Like, yeah, no, I mean that's part of it, right? And that could, in like, mental health support could help students who end up feeling like they need to turn to a gang for safety as well. Like that's part of it. And in fairness, my friend, I don't know if she'd actually consider me a friend or not, but the former coworker Melanie, who talked about that, like, does talk about this type of stuff too. How, like, you can end up on a path of violence in part because of, like, trauma associated with experiencing violence yourself, and like that's a real thing, right? Like, you
Yeah,
start to
and
think that
making
that's
money.
yeah, it's a combination of making money and, like, thinking like, oh well, this is just how the world operates, and you end up kind of passing on some of that trauma.
We should probably get back to the radio show, right?
Now we should get back to the radio show. I know that there's a bunch of other comments in here. It says great, but we're not going to be able to get to all of them. So we'll go back at 27 and then run for another 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Take
right.
2 breaks.
Sounds good.
And quick, someone help me out. 27 plus 15, 42, right?
Yep.
I can math sometimes.
Nice.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Numbers are my thing.
But so we'll go back in 10, 9, 5. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
And as the Freedom Variant, I want to talk about freeing Britney Spears. Guys, she just made the news again, man.
Did she? I haven't been following it. I saw the whole like free Britney thing, conservatorship.
Yeah, every time I hear about her, I think about the conservatorship issue and how it's often overlooked in our society as it's a form of abuse that is running. I want to say it's running rampant in a way, right? So Free Britney was out to dinner with her husband the other night, and I guess she had some sort of meltdown in the restaurant. It all brought back like the whole, should they have really let go of that conservatorship? And I'm like, yeah, they should have. Okay, like maybe she is crazy, but only a little bit crazy, and she's able to provide for herself.
So
and
we'll step back a little. We'll step back a tiny bit. Explain who's Britney.
Oh, guys,
for those of you who don't know, you just say Britney. Yeah, you just say
Britney Spears was stuck in a conservatorship for 13 years because her dad felt as though some of her behavior was irresponsible, perhaps delusional, and perhaps she was suffering manic episodes, right? So recently she got accused of having a manic episode at a restaurant. She denies that her and her husband kind of pushed back against that. It took years for her to fight this conservatorship where her dad got appointed her legal guardian and got to manage her assets. They took $36 million from her estate to pay themselves and take care of themselves. Her family took $36 million. Kevin, do you know how much Britney Spears is worth?
No idea.
Not as much as Nancy Pelosi. I just want to be really clear about that. She's worth about $70 million, guys. But here's the thing, right? We shouldn't just be concerned about conservatorship when it comes to pop stars like Britney Spears. And look, it was an injustice. She was fighting this conservatorship for years, right?
Yeah.
Close to 6-7 years before she even got to speak for herself in court. The laws around conservatorships are disastrous, dangerous, and problematic. In Florida, guys, though, if you want to be a conservator and you want to go steal like old people's assets, you take a weekend course, you can get yourself appointed a guardian. Then you just got to go find yourself a client. And It
And
takes
so basically, just to get some other context, like what can happen in these situations, right? Is that you say that this an individual, like an adult individual, is not capable of being able to like manage themselves, right? Like, so you need someone to manage their assets and make,
correct.
other decisions on their behalf. And you do this, you go to a judge and you ask for this conservatorship, or, or you get an appointed a guardian, and basically you're able to make a whole bunch of like pretty serious decisions on their behalf. And this is what happened with Britney Spears, like up to and including like even sometimes medical decisions and like
Sure.
a bunch of stuff, right?
And you get to bill for your time, right? And
Right.
you get to control their assets, and you can their assets. And so that's where it becomes a real conflict of interest, right? Um, what generally happens too in the case of older folks is that the family will fight over who's going to be in charge of the finances if the slightly disabled or becoming disabled adult hasn't clearly delineated that. So if they haven't clearly delineated and the family fights over it, the government steps in. Somebody petitions a court appoints a state appointed guardian for that money. And at that point, that's when things get really wild, right? They can do things like, let's say your parent is living in an assisted care facility. They can take and change that assisted care facility for whatever reason they want to. They can move them hundreds of miles away from you. You'll have no access to them. And you won't be able to see, and you may not even have rights to witness what's going on with their money. Like they can take over everything. Something like $273 billion right now being managed by conservatorships and people that are in the professional business. One of the things that came to light recently, Kevin, that I wanted to bring up, because Britney Spears is something that can highlight the issue. But
Right.
in California, there's a kid, Spike Cohen's been going on about it. There's a kid that turned 18. He's developmentally disabled. And guys, if you ever get a chance, go check it out. But it's at Spike Cohen's page. Deborah Finley and her son Andrew. Deborah and her husband applied for a conservatorship for Andrew because he turned 18 and they weren't going to be able to provide the care for him without assistance from the government. So they apply for this conservatorship. The conservatorship steps in, takes the kid from them, tells them that they're possibly abusive, and then basically it becomes this whole circular thing where now the parents are cut out of this kid's life. The Department of Social Services in California are managing this kid. The kid's getting moved from facility to facility to keep them away. They don't even have access to visit the kid. And so
Wow.
there is a lot of money that gets thrown around, and there's lots of wink, wink, nod, nod decisions by judges and lawyers as to what's in the best interest of the child. But we can see the state propping itself up in this one. And that's, to me, we even have to be able to look at that as a potential conflict of interest. Now, there's hope. And even Gavin Newsom realizes that there may be a problem with conservatorships. And so California recently passed a law limiting the rights of the conservator and enhancing the rights of the conservatee, which is a step in the right direction. I'm not sure where else to go with this other than it's one of those poison toxic topics that drive libertarians crazy.
No, I mean, like, now I understand that there is probably some case for this being a legitimate thing sometimes, right? And that's where
Sure.
you get that's where it gets messy, right? Like there's some people who like maybe they do act erratic, maybe they really can't manage themselves responsibly, right? Like in theory. But
Right.
there's just so much room for abuse in this situation. Like the situation you talked about, and so many others too. We're just taking advantage of people who are elderly or maybe have like a slight mental like disability or something else too, right? Where maybe they could, it's borderline, and you have to keep asking a judge to like recertify the conservatorship. But especially when you get the state involved and there's financial incentives involved with people, like it's just so many bad incentives for abuse to happen. And so I only know a little bit about this, and I've been seeing a couple of things from Spike, and I did follow some of the Free Britney stuff, although goodness, her Instagram is bizarre. My wife will read me her post every once in a while. But
I'm not
sorry,
100% confident that Britney's conservatorship should have been lifted because she does do some things that are a little bit
there's
crazy. But the conservatorship, the conservator can enter into financial arrangements on your behalf that are purportedly to benefit you, which is they can write checks, they can buy property, they can sell your property, they can take your stuff out of your house and sell it to help support you. They can do all sorts of things. There was a movie about it that was epic, Kevin. It was a total like gangster throwdown. I Care a Lot is what it was called. And we go back to 2019. And it's like an amalgamation of stories where people were basically taken by this one lady in California and put into like assisted living facilities. She could just go right to their house. She could go to the court, apply for a conservatorship, get it, and then make these people move out of their house, sell all of their assets, sell their house, spend all of their money on their for-profit enterprises and writing contracts. And so they made a movie about it. It was great. It was a great movie. It was such a gangster throwdown.
Do you remember what the movie is called?
Yeah, I Care a Lot is what
I
it
Care
was
a
called.
Lot, you said?
Yeah. And so it
Interesting.
basically came down that she messed with the wrong lady, and that little guy from the Game of Thrones who plays a great gangster, it was happened to be his mother that she started messing with. And long story short, turnabout's fair play. These two enter into a business arrangement together to continue on with their conservatorship game of fleasing.
Ah.
It
Oh, a happy ending.
is a happy ending.
Oh man. No, I don't know.
So besides the tragedy of what happened to Britney Spears, I think that we should pay attention to the changing laws in conservatorship. The California law that Gavin Newsom put out is really not that bad. It does require a reaffirmation of the conservatorship. It does require input from the conservatee, which in Britney's case was not something that she was automatically granted. I don't know if people know that. Like, she didn't actually get to speak on her own behalf, even after trying for it took like 5 years. So that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, which, again, it should be like a minimum, right? Like you should be able to speak on your own behalf. Do I like what's going on here? And then let's say if you do have a situation where you do need someone who's an expert to be able to say, are they competent to make these decisions on their own? And again, that requires a lot of trust in the system that frankly doesn't deserve it most of the time, but that's in theory how it should work, right? But they should be able to make an argument. This is why this doesn't work for me. This is why I need either someone else or I need to have be released from this arrangement altogether. And if they can't make that argument and they can't advocate for themselves effectively, then okay, that sort of justifies the situation. But if they can, put together a pretty decent argument, and it doesn't need to be I am going to make the best decisions ever, because there are lots of adults who by no means would enter into these arrangements who also can't make the best decisions for themselves. And yet they are free to do so because we don't necessarily know what the best decision for everyone is, right? We need to let people go out and do their own things and sometimes make their own mistakes. That's part of what living in a free society means.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you. I'm trying to bring up the Spike Cohen stuff. I do see Shelley has an interesting comment about conservatorships.
Yeah,
We'll
bring
put that up on the screen.
Shelley says, Shelley on YouTube, I'm in a traumatic brain injury waiver program that guarantees me certain rights, including the right to fail, including financially. I also cannot be placed in a facility. Right. Yeah. And if you're in a situation where you can, again, maintain those rights and you're able to make your own decisions, even if it sometimes means risking failure, man, everyone else is also risking failure with their financial decisions too. That's what it is. And Joe says the only limits to the program is I cannot commit crimes.
Seems fair. If all of a sudden you start going out and robbing banks, Shelley, perhaps we could appoint a conservator to help you make better decisions.
Right. If you're going out committing crimes, all right, that's
I've met Shelley person to person. She's a sweetheart. There is no way she's going to be going out and committing crimes. But
yeah. But I don't know, fair limitation on the program though. I mean, also if you go out and start committing crimes, someone's gonna maybe place some limitations on you.
They would just put me in jail, Kevin. With no conservatorship necessary.
No, you just go to jail.
So when we come back from the break, I mean, should we talk about Greta and her penchant for protesting coal? What should we talk about? Hector LaSalle? Probably Greta would be more interesting, right?
I don't even know what the other thing is. I probably should know. I don't know.
Oh,
But
the Hector LaSalle, the appointment of a conservative
oh,
judge
right.
in
The
New York
judge in New York
State.
State. Yeah. I know.
I,
That one I don't know. I don't know enough about other than the fact that I
there's no
saw.
such thing.
Well, yeah.
No such.
Besides that, like the only thing I've read about it, because I keep being like, yeah, I need to read more about this, is that the I guess he's more friendly to like landlords and like property management organizations in relation to tenant rights than a lot of lefties want, which doesn't necessarily make me dislike him. But
Kind of rooting for the guy, really.
yeah, like it depends on what the situation is, I suppose. But the only thing I saw about it recently was that Kathy Hochul like kicked this woman out of a church on Martin Luther King Day for yelling at her about it, which is, gosh, just sweet irony. Government doing that, just
Bittersweet irony.
I
I
love
mean,
that. It's yeah,
the
not
other,
as bad as the FBI celebrating MLK Day every year, but
after what they did to that guy, and after how
yeah,
they've long been involved in the business that they're still involved in, and that's
yeah, no,
manipulating public
just
opinion.
a reminder that like the FBI told Martin Luther King Jr. that he should kill himself and tried to like extort him. Yeah, no, they were not doing nice things then. Maybe now too, but definitely not then.
Even now, I don't know that we've ever really understood what they're supposed to do, and I don't know that they've ever really understood what they're supposed to do. So they go down some kind of weird wormholes to create crimes and punish their confidential informants. I don't know.
That's
Like,
what,
it's
yeah, no,
very
it's
strange.
you get to a certain level of lack of accountability, and that's what can happen. All right, but we're coming on break though. So thanks again for joining us here on a free solution. So got to go to a break for WYSL. We're gonna be back with one more segment. Talk to you soon. All right, and we're good. So
Yeah.
let's talk
I've
about
one kind of fake news that's going back a couple years.
fake news.
Well, fake-ish news, yeah. It may or may not be fake. Potentially
okay.
fake news.
And I gotta be honest, I don't have fake news.
It's all right. We can do one. We've got to talk a little bit about Greta getting arrested and all of the implications of that.
Yeah, no, do some of that, and gosh, man, they only man, there's sad news on Reason. Their main headline is a bummer. I have to read this headline. A man pointing a finger gun at cops was jailed for over a year without trial and starved to death behind bars. All right. Oof.
Is that real or fake?
That's
real.
Yeah, that's a real one. It's from a good reporter and it's well sourced. Yikes. All right. Well, anyway, we should probably go back to the radio. You want to lead in with fake news? You want to do
Let's talk about Greta because she's just like fake news.
All right. And folks listening online, I know you're hearing our planning talk here, so feel free to jump in. Y'all part of the show.
Yeah.
Jump in with your ideas if you want. But we're gonna go back at 44. Nine. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, and I want to talk about one of my favorite people in all of stardom, little Greta Thunberg, who got arrested this weekend. Greta Tintin Eleanor Ernman Thunberg. That's from Wikipedia, so maybe that's not really her full name. but she is a
You
Swedish.
can't always trust Wikipedia.
She is a Swedish environmental activist who is known for challenging world leaders to take immediate action for climate change. Now, coincidentally, Kevin, this past weekend in Davos, Switzerland, Klaus Schwab and his group of merry bands of whatever.
Oh goodness, you tricked me into having a World Economic Forum conversation, didn't you? That's
No.
right.
Let's concentrate on Greta though. What she didn't want them to get all the headlines, so she went ahead and protested coal in Germany.
Right. Well,
It's
Germany, they're having a little bit of an energy crisis right now. They're trying to figure out what they do. They decided like, all right, we're gonna get off natural gas. They had already made the decision previously to get off of nuclear power. You gotta get energy from somewhere though. And so one of the things that they're gonna do is like supposedly they're gonna like either disrupt or at some stories said like demolish like a village in order to like dig some more coal out of the ground and use that to power some of their cities, which is something like Poland's been doing that for a little while. It has really kind of hit their air quality pretty bad, but Germany had made a big bet. They were going to move everything over to natural gas. They wanted to get away from nuclear. They're gonna eventually, natural gas was like the stepping stone to be able to do wind and solar, but it's just not quite enough to get them what they need. But
it's nowhere near enough to get them what they need. Let's be
yeah,
honest, right? They're struggling, right? Their people are hurting.
yeah,
They don't have
need
enough
to
energy.
you need to heat your homes and keep the lights on somehow, right?
They're buying
Or
Russian
do we?
oil. Like even
Yeah,
outside of the agreement to not buy Russian oil, Germany was buying Russian oil because they need it. That's
yeah,
a reality.
right. Yeah, again, you don't want things can get really bad really fast for governments when suddenly people can't turn on their lights anymore and they're used to that sort of thing. Um,
Yeah. They can't heat their hot water. They can't heat their homes.
yeah,
There's going to be problems. Like
yeah.
I don't
So
know.
it's not it's just expensive right now. It's not necessarily like a blackout situation there, but it could get there if they don't find alternatives soon. And again, you're gonna if you do that, what happens when a bunch of like previously prosperous people are now suddenly like not able to turn on their lights, not able to afford power? They tend to turn to some radical things, and we've seen Germany do that before as well.
We don't want to put those Germans under any undue pressure.
Suddenly
Kevin.
you have a whole bunch of inflation and things go wacky. Yeah, you can
We
get some
can't
bad results
trust
from
those
that.
guys to keep it chill, man. Like let's
Yeah.
be honest.
No, so they gotta figure this out too. And again, it's strange because they did used to have like a very robust nuclear power system, and in fact they started shutting them down. Was it like 2011? Yeah, no, it was 2011 because I was in Germany at the time. I was in Berlin. I was a student there, and I remember going to like the Brandenburg Gate, and there's just a bunch of anti-nuclear power protests there, and a bunch of stuff out at the Parliament building, the Reichstag, and stuff too. And the yeah, that ended up being successful. So they decided they're going to phase out nuclear power. They kept it on for a little bit longer last year, but they're still like, nope, we're still going to shut it down. We don't want that. And the wild thing is that like these climate activists are saying like, yeah, no coal, don't dig coal here. But also they still have their Atomkraft 9 Danke flags there too. Like, come on, can you not see what's happening? What is better? Like
People need to know what that means, Kevin. Not everybody speaks German, buddy.
Warum nicht? No.
Gesundheit.
Yeah, right. No. It means nuclear power. No, thank you. Right. So that's that's all it is. And it's got a little sun on it.
German.
Yeah, Atomkraft, nuclear power, 9 Danke.
Okay. All right.
So they have that. It's funny, like you can see, like even activists like Greta Thunberg had kind of said, like, oh well, maybe like nuclear power is like worth keeping around for a little while longer because it's a better alternative to coal. But a lot of these activists, it's like it's I talk about like the kind of negative growth mentality that people have with some of this stuff. Like these are people I think are they are so into thinking that they are doing good that they are going to do just a massive amount of evil. right? And or cause other like evil people to be able to seize power. And
They're
that's what
gonna
that is. Like,
empower. Yes, they'll
yeah,
empower evil to achieve their goals. That's for sure.
right.
Um,
And that's like that type of situations. Like if you really think like the best thing for humanity is for us to just like go back to the Stone Age, like for us to like not use power at all, because that's like what the alternative is looking at this point. It's
well,
no,
isn't
like that is not good. That is increasing human misery and suffering massively. We can do better. We can have warm homes.
we
We
can
have
have warm homes.
we have the technology,
We
guys.
do. Yeah.
It's possible, and we can do it. Like coal is not. Sorry if you love coal. It's not like a great source of power. It's good that we've moved beyond that in most situations, right? Like it's dirty. It does pollute the air a lot. Like it's not great. It's weird that Germany's regressing to like digging up coal again.
It's funny. Thomas Massey has a pretty good sense of humor. As you guys know, he's one of my favorite members of Congress. He drives a Tesla. He's trying to do his part. He has solar panels on his farm, and like he has a big, huge bumper sticker on his Tesla that he posted on Twitter about 2 weeks ago. Powered by coal. Thank you very much. Like they
He's Kentucky. He's got to
yeah,
do that, right?
they're going to use. Well, Kentucky's got some coal.
Yeah,
Pennsylvania's
no,
got some coal.
that's what
Like
I mean.
yeah. So
So
it's the for me, Kevin, and I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again. That the promise of green energy right now is the promise of less for your children, colder days, less food, less energy, less hot water, all of the things that we feel either entitled to or that we worked hard to earn. That's the promise of a cleaner environment right now, and I just don't think that that's the answer. I don't think that that comes close to the answer. We need a
for yeah, there's like a certain number of environmentalists who are like that. Again, that like when I've read stuff about like the negative growth folks, the folks who are like, well, the real problem is like when there's too many people. Like those folks, those are the ones who actually scare me when they say that type
Malthusians.
of stuff. Yeah, they're like the Malthusians, like the ones who think there are too many people who think we need to reduce energy consumption instead of finding better alternatives to be able to, because again there's a huge massive part of the world that doesn't have the luxury of like cheap, simple, like reliable energy consumption that we have, and we should want those folks to be able to have what we have.
I
And
agree.
there's some people who are like, no, we can't do that. It's not sustainable. They're just going to have to like not be able to live like, and that's going to take fossil fuels initially because fossil fuels are very energy dense. Like it's a quick way to get,
Eat.
people in better living situations. The people who can't wrap their head around like why someone in like India would want to vastly improve their living situation and doesn't really care the means to do that, have no empathy whatsoever. Like it drives me bananas. But but for the good of humanity overall, we need to like not let this happen. We need to completely cut off zero carbon. Those folks are insane. Insane.
It's I agree. So you I agree. I've always I'm a big fan, guys. I work in the solar panel industry. I like the way that they return more energy than they put in. I know that people are skeptical. I get it. Be skeptical. It's fine. It's a technology that's gonna prove itself out over time. And also it becomes increasingly efficient, right? As we go into mass production, like with everything, like with the TV, with the computer, eventually we get to where guys are having podcasts on TV talking to hundreds of people. Like we solar panels are a decentralized source of power. I like them. It's a good idea. If it's a good idea for you, it's a good idea. That's
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
So yeah, no, I generally agree. And again, like there's I think going to be cooler decentralized sources of power that are going to be like great. And solar panels is one of them. Uh, Eventually, maybe we'll get to the point of having like hydrogen fuel cell technology. They'll do something similar. Wind technology, they'll do something similar. Or I can just put a fusion reactor in my backyard, or at least I'm fission reactors even in my
Yeah,
backyard. That's fine. I should be able to do that. It's by
the
right.
technology exists, okay? They're already powering major cities with offshore boats that are like 20 miles away that are nuclear reactors. And guys, it's there. It can be done. It's safe. Let's talk about this comment coming in from
All
Patricia.
right, but you want to read it? Go ahead.
Yeah, Greta, a child exploited by adults for their agenda. She wants a better future. Adults have their hooks in her right now. We will see what the future holds for her.
Yeah.
Probably irrelevancy, but yeah, I think it's awful what happened to her. I
Sure,
don't
yeah.
agree with it.
She's 20 now, so
Yeah,
she's an adult. I mean, but yeah, like there's a little bit of that feels a bit skeevy, right? Just
it sure did. It sure did, especially that few years ago when they were putting her up against Trump all the time. I felt like that, and they were just hoping Trump would say something about her. I believe she's slightly autistic or something like that. They just were just hoping he would seize on that so they could. And they even tried to, and he kind of didn't even address that issue. He's just like, she's being exploited.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
He just like he just did
It
that
was
like
Yeah, it
some like
wasn't
Andrew
Trump's
Tate
worst.
getting in a fight
Yeah,
with her.
it
Look like a
wasn't Trump's
moron.
worst sidestep. It was pretty good. Like it
Yeah,
was effectual.
yeah. Every once in a while, he knows what he's
Every
doing.
once in a while, he does something right. That guy.
So actually, I know we only have a couple minutes left, and this is sort of a related topic on the decentralized power thing. A bunch of people they're still on the gas stoves thing, which again, I have a gas stove. I like my gas stove,
Yeah, I'm
but
keeping
people being like, "Oh, I don't want something that like could be like shut off remotely, like electricity is not as reliable." Like I don't know about that. Like if I wanted to go off grid, I honestly like gas stove is like the last thing I would want because I get municipal gas. It's great. Again, I
Yeah.
furnace, stove, the my dryer, all gas. But like if I wanted to be able to like generate my own power, probably either a wood stove or an electric stove would be the way to go. If I didn't want to like if I wanted to be off grid or if I was worried about someone cutting off my appliances or something.
Yeah, my
Uh,
situation is different, right? If I can figure out a way to get enough tanks of propane, I'll be set, right? Like my stove is going to heat my house but then if they cut off propane at the supplier, that would get to be a challenge.
all right.
So
Well, you got to go out and like buy this external thing that you're not able to go out and like get somewhere, right?
right. They look, guys, it's bleak. The future is bleak. If they decide to hard line cut us off from gas, they can hard line cut us off from gas. That's a reality. So
Yeah.
that scares me.
Yeah, right. Like again, if I was worried about that, like they are moving towards banning these appliances in New York State, and it'd probably just start with you can't sell any new ones, but like eventually, either they're gonna say we're just gonna cut this off because like we're not gonna do it anymore. They'll give like a 10-year notice or something,
Yeah.
or they'll say we're just not maintaining the lines anymore. Is probably what they're gonna say. Hey, we've already phased out furnaces and gas stoves and all this other stuff. You can't buy them anymore. You have been able to buy them for 10 years. So I'm gonna guess by like 2040, they're gonna say they're gonna phase out like gas lines. Like that's a while from now, but I bet that's gonna happen in New York State. Call it now.
Right.
We'll revisit this in 17 years to see if I'm right.
Will we
Uh,
though? I may not. I mean, that would be a pretty generous time frame for me to still have any interest in this at all because I'm going to move south to Florida, start a conservatorship business, and then eventually become victim of another conservatorship business. That's
the
my
circle of
retirement plan.
life.
Yeah,
That's
that's my game plan.
very, very Florida thing to do.
Yeah,
Um,
that's how I
but
see it.
no, which that's why I see a bunch of Floridians being like, "Oh yeah, you're not gonna take my gas stove away too." Like Ron DeSantis was yelling about that, but it's not as big of a gas stoves just aren't a big thing in Florida because you don't have like the gas lines going to your house anyway for like furnaces and stuff.
You
It's not,
can,
not a big thing down
yeah.
south.
Some people posted me some memes about assault style concealed carry gas stoves. Those things were very funny.
Oh yeah, it's funny. I'll have a laugh at that stuff. But yeah, policy wise, I'm like, yeah, I like my stove. But I'm seeing it go away, and also I realize I definitely don't have my vent set up correctly. So
Yeah, no,
look, no, it just vents inside the house. It's useless.
but that's the beauty of gas. It's really not that bad for you.
It's not. Oh no. Well, actually, we'll talk about that study briefly, but we do got to get going on the WYSL side. If you want to hear the rest of this, make sure you subscribe to our podcast or follow us on Facebook or YouTube. So we do have extra conversations in between commercials and sometimes afterwards too. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Have a wonderful, wonderful night, folks. Take care. And okay, all right. Radio show's over.
Radio show is over. Let's get funky.
Show's over. No, so I was reading Emily Oster, who everyone roasted for her Atlantic article about COVID forgiveness. She puts out a newsletter about like child health stat stuff. So she broke down that whole stat that or that whole report about gas stoves causing like 12% of childhood asthma.
Yeah.
And basically the short and long of it is that report is probably nonsense. And
Right.
they took like, okay, we're gonna look at like rates of asthma and compare that to rates of gas stove ownership and decide that like those are correlated because those are correlated numbers, assuming or implying causation from that, right?
Right, which you can't do. Certainly, causation and certainly correlation suggests a possibility of causation, right? And that
Yeah.
there's a study there that perhaps should be done. Um, but you can't just automatically say it. Like you can't. It's nonsense, and we get away with that all the time. You
Yeah.
can still buy, guys. If you know, going off grid, Kevin, with a little bit of coal, if you can like stock it up, rats don't get into it. Animals don't create homes out of it, and it burns incredibly hot. So it does have a certain level of comfort that
Oh,
sort
sure.
of surpasses wood. Like it's cleaner than wood,
I get it.
especially the
It's just
pelletized stuff.
oh yeah. No, I get it. I get it. You know, I'm not gonna knock it. Mostly though, like again, if my concern were I want to be like self-sustaining and I don't want the state to cut off my source of fuel, I would probably look to use wood. Is it like for heating source plus solar, which I know like can break down too, but
Solar can break, sure, but
yeah,
you can fix it usually.
yeah. Um,
If you do everything in direct, if you wire up for direct current, your solar panels could be a big asset for you.
no, sure. If you're able to do
Off
that,
grid, like what they do now is they use alternating current to excite them, and it returns a lot more energy than goes into it. So that with direct current, you can wire your house off of direct current. Direct current may be more efficient. Um, so who knows?
yeah. I know that's a way to do it. And I know occasionally get people like who's that guy Nate Petrosky or whatever his name is on TikTok. Do you ever get his videos?
No, I kind of that whole Chinese spy app. I kind of turned it off. I haven't been going on it very much
No,
lately.
listen, just embrace it. Like the Chinese already have your face, Tim. Like
That's
it's too
true.
late. You might as well just have fun with it.
It was bugging me too much. Like like listening to it when I was going down the road. And I'm like, all right, this has got to stop. I
Oh,
got to
yeah. No, you can't do that. No, not while you're driving, Tim.
I got to take a break.
I put timers on all my apps, so I got like
All right.
an hour of TikTok. All right. If I go more than an hour, that's too much. It'll cut me off. It'll turn off the app.
My wife is my TikTok filter. She sends me the most important TikToks that she knows I'm interested in seeing. So I get TikTok, but distilled. It just
Yeah.
shows up in my
Oh.
Facebook Messenger. It works out very well for me.
Yeah, I get that from my wife for Instagram. She'll like, all right, like she's gonna send me the good stuff from Instagram, which is sometimes like TikTok videos that I saw 2 weeks ago, but still
I
nice.
don't even know what
Still nothing
Instagram
counts.
is, Kevin. I mean, I don't even know. I've never even been on it. I don't think.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I get a message from Instagram on my Facebook, my business page, the Freedom Variant page, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah. So someone's trying to contact you. That's what it means.
Oh,
Then you're just gonna get out.
my God! I got another news article.
What?
They found like $43 million in some Nigerian apartment about 2 weeks ago. And of course, somebody automatically came up with a meme of, he's probably been trying to give it away for the last 10 years.
I saw that. That's pretty good.
That was a good one, I thought. That was excellent memery.
Nice. Anyway, I was gonna say something else, but I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a good show. I had fun.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Thank you,
I
Shelly.
guess. Yeah. Thanks, Shelly. Appreciate you listening. Yeah, I think we're call the night now.
Might as well. I could use some sleep.
I still gotta edit this.
Yeah, we'll let you get back to
All right.
do the hard work. Did you catch any of that Diane Sayer show?
Oh, I gotta listen to that.
You got to check it out.
Yeah,
She's
open on a tab up here.
passionate, man. She's great. She went after. She sent me a YouTube clip of her going after Chuck Schumer again. She really doesn't like Chuck. She goes to his events and she brought a loudspeaker this time and was like yelling across the event at him.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
just wonderful. Good night, Patty. Oh, she's so great. Like just her ability to and desire to confront certain aspects of the governing machine. I just love it.
Fantastic. All right. So make sure you check out that, folks. All right. Well, have a wonderful night. Thanks again for listening. We will see you next week.
Yep. Take care.